Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and today I am super excited for another edition of the show. Today I got on my guy, Asher Smith. We're going to be talking about the Final Four, giving our reaction to both the games, the national championship. Congratulations to Florida for winning the championship. Unbelievable performance by them throughout the whole tournament. And we discuss all of that. And then we switch over and talk about some of the coaching moves and what we're looking forward to next season. So without further ado, I'm going to cue the music. All right. Welcome back into the show. And I am super excited to have back on my guy, Asher Smith. He is back with us to talk an unbelievable March Madness tournament that was really awesome to watch. So happy to have Asher back on. Asher, how we doing, man?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was an awesome tournament. Feel like it was 2 months long. It was so exciting. They just packed it all in really well. I don't know how they did that, but oh man. And then middle of the week we were watching like random tournaments I didn't even know existed. I had the crown on. I had, highlights from last year's tournament. I was just getting ready for this Final Four and it delivered. So it's been a
Yeah.
pretty awesome last week, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been awesome. We've seen some really, really good basketball. And it feels like a while ago when we were previewing the March Madness and we felt really good. I think what we determined amongst ourselves is that we're a first round podcast. You got to listen to us in the first round. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I thought that, we had it made after the first couple. I thought you and I were going to coast with 16, Sweet 16 for both. And it turns out that you and I are only good for the chalk in the first round. After
Yep.
that, we decided to go way too crazy because we lost everybody on day 3 and 4. So listen to us for the first, and then we'll come back with a second version after all of our picks are out for you guys. So that's all I can offer.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking back on our picks, like I feel really good about a normal year. Like that can normally happen. And people are talking about, oh, the upset's dead, blah, blah, blah. The upset's not dead. It'll come back. I think overall how we picked them is the right way to go in a normal year. But the main thing is, and what we're going to talk about is these one seeds are just unbelievable and nobody could beat them this year. And I think that's really just a testament to the talent we had and how historically good these teams are, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of players on teams that, might have been different jerseys last year, but had NCAA tournament experience that showed it, especially in the 4-1 seeds. Because, like you said, with the upsets, I feel like every game that was close, the quote unquote better team ended up closing it out, which isn't usually the case in March Madness. But this year, for whatever reason, it didn't matter if it was 5 versus 12 or 1 versus 2. The older team usually is the one that finished it out, all the way to the Final Four. And it led for some exciting games. Definitely we got some better teams in the Elite Eight than normal, better teams in the Final Four, definitely. And, as a viewer, that was super exciting. But wonder what the underdogs are going to do for the next tournament to kind of, create a competitive edge for them, right? Something that they can be like, oh, this is, how we're going to bust people's brackets, like, show them something we've never seen before. Because, I don't know if it was the coaches or the players, but everyone seemed ready to go as soon as their game tipped off. And, there were some dominating wins, some fun ones, but the players that had experience that were just looking for maybe a March Madness run that they didn't get at a smaller college last year, they came to play, which was super exciting.
Yeah, no, it was super, super fun looking at all the games. And I mean, this Final Four was something special, man. All 4-1 seeds, I was going in and like I previewed it with Griffin Beers and both of us were talking about like you could pick anybody. Like you really could. Like these teams are just that talented. So let's start with the championship game that happened last night. I want to start there. You got Florida, Houston, unbelievable back and forth game. Houston really dominated to start, looked really good, was physical. They got under Walter Clayton's skin with that blitz and their pick and roll. And it was really fun to watch. And the funny thing is, Asher, I was watching the game and I was getting so tired. So I was like, I think I'm gonna go to bed. And I went to bed. right? And
Oh
then I
no.
got up and I see all the scores and stuff, but then I watched the game afterwards, and I felt to myself, like, watching it knowing what happens, you're just watching it in a different way, and I actually kind of like that. And I thought I got more out of the game that way. And looking at it, like, I got to see like exactly what Houston ran on offense, which I never really thought about. I got to see exactly how Florida ran their offense, how they're trying to get Walter Clayton open, how it didn't work in the first half, and then they got a couple of looks for him, which shows you the gravity of him. And I thought it was really interesting to watch it that way. It kind of gave me a different sense. But what were your thoughts on the game that happened last night? Really a crazy ending, crazy game.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to Florida. The entire tournament were a team that people were picking to win it all, and maybe somewhere like, oh well, maybe St. John's can knock them off. Maybe this team. I think you had them get knocked off in like the second
Yep.
round or something like
Yep.
that. So everyone was trying to find ways to beat Florida without even justifying it because they knew this was clearly one of the best teams in the tournament. So congrats to them for just taking over every single game they were in and finding ways to win when they needed to. Yeah, the game last night. If you look at the box score and not the result, I feel like you'd think Houston would win this game. They kind of, came in and did everything that they needed to do. They put Walter Clayton in a torture chamber, if you will, on defense because that is what they're known for. They're known to slow teams down that like to get up and down the floor and score. They muck it up in the paint, right? They do not make it easy for you to get your main point grabbers going, and that's what they did. And it felt like Houston kind of controlled the game the entire way, but couldn't put Florida away. And I think many of us thought that Houston, especially after that Duke game, didn't really have what it takes to put a team away. Like they would, control a game, keep themselves in it, definitely frustrate another team. But in terms of putting away a team that they're up 4, 5, 6 points on, they don't really have that second gear. And that
Yeah.
showed last night, right? A couple shots didn't go in that they ran some pretty, elongated sets, wasted time, and couldn't get that final shot to go in. Or from the free throw line, right? I think Florida was close to 80% from the free throw line. Houston, statistically more of a 70% team, was down near the 60s, right? So a couple instances where maybe Florida was just too good to put away, right? Houston needed to do that one extra thing, score 70 points in a basketball game in order to win. And credit to Florida, they kept themselves in it, and they knew that, hey, if we play our game for the entire 40 minutes, that we'll be okay. And that's exactly what happened, right? Walter Clayton didn't need the whole game. He just needed a few moments. Man, if you let him get those few moments, he can beat anybody in the country. And that was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. No, I mean, we got a game here with just like flat out studs going after each other. And I mean, I love Houston. I love watching them play. They really get under your skin. And I didn't think it was a great matchup for Walter Clayton, and it wasn't. He
Right.
didn't have his best game. But the thing is, his numbers still say 11, 5, and 7. That's not a terrible game, right? And he was able to make some unbelievable passes to keep him in the game. It really, like, looking at it draft prospect wise, it really like credited me. I was like, whoa, this guy can pass, like he's got some in him, which is really awesome. But the thing that really impressed me with Florida were their two wing guys, Richard and I mean, Martin, like they're
Yeah.
studs, dude. I think they're both like really guys you could pick up in the second round on an NBA team and be like, okay, we could plug you in for like 5 minutes and they could really go. Like Martin defensively, he was awesome. He really got under Uzan's skin because Uzan did not have a great night. He was 2 for 9, 0 for 4 from 3. Sharp had a rough night as well
Yeah.
offensively, but he was awesome defensively. I feel really bad for Sharp because I think there's a lot of people like they're just going to remember the end of the game where he turns it over with 30 seconds left, and then he turns it over again on the pump fake and an dribble. I feel really bad for him because he was awesome. They don't get to that game without Sharp. He hits that big 3 against Duke to keep them in the game. Sharp was unbelievable throughout the tournament. He showed me so much. And I mean, like Cryer and Uzan, both unbelievable as well. But to me, this is just a credit to Florida and how versatile they were defensively. Will Richards' threes at the first half were huge to keep them in the game because Florida couldn't score at all. And Richard was hitting some tough threes to keep them in it. So I think the story for Florida were these two guys that people aren't talking about because their bigs were awesome. Tyler Howe off the bench is great. I think he's got some NBA upside also. Condon was fantastic in this game as well. But overall, to me, I thought it was Richard and Martin who just really like stepped up. And then looking at Houston, they were great throughout the whole game. Really controlled it. Crier got open on a lot of threes, and I loved how they did some sets in order to get him open with like some flare actions, and they used a lot of stacks as well to get him open. And overall with Crier, like he's just an unbelievable scorer. 19 points in this game. He can really create his own shot. I think he's got potential wherever he goes because he can really score the ball. And then the guy that really impressed me is Tugler. And this was throughout the whole Final Four. They were listing all of Cooper Flag's defensive rating stuff and all that stuff, and how he's near the top. Well, Tugler was right there with him on every category, and he's just sensational as a rim protector. I really think he's got some potential as well. He's a younger guy, really athletic with his rim protecting, and I think he's a stud. And then Juwan Roberts, another guy. Houston guy that's been there 6 years. He hit the big free throws to get him in it. Was not his best game. 3 of 13. Struggled from the free throw line as well, but I thought he was great defensively. This is a tough blow for Houston because I think this is the best Houston team I've seen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that every year seems like a tough blow for Houston, but this one is going to stick for a while.
Yeah.
And it is because how they beat Duke, right? Like that seemed like a team of destiny, just overcoming the odds, everyone stepping up, multiple people in double figures that, weren't in this championship game. And you're like, okay, they've done enough, right? Their defense will take them the rest of the way. And it almost did. Like they were close. I think
Yeah.
that the main difference between them and Florida, which you pointed out, is that Florida's secondary guys stepped up when Clayton was on an off night, which an off night for him is still double-digit points. But they had multiple guys that stepped up and said, okay, we'll take on the offensive load, right? It's going to be tough to get good shots against Houston. We'll make an effort. Houston didn't have that, right? Juwan Roberts only finished with 8 points, I think. Same with Emmanuel Sharp, which I know people are, obviously going to be pointing at the last shot as, something that's his fault, which in my mind is absolutely on the play calling. When you're, a team that shoots like Houston and rebounds like Houston, why aren't you going towards that rim, it's not on Sharp, but like in the Duke game, he's someone who stepped up. He didn't do it in this game, right? Uzan, like you said, he steps up in other games in the tournament, kind of shies away here. So that's just tough to see 4 of your 5 starters kind of, just look at LJ and be like, what are we chucking up on this play, right? Which many people might say like, hey, that's how they've been the whole year. That's how they've been. They're not trying to get the prettiest shot. They're trying to break teams down, right? They're trying to get fast break. They're trying to let LJ Crier cook. Against a team like Florida, you just can't do that, right? They're too good. They're too solid defensively, right? They run too great of sets on offense, right? They're going to wear you down just like Houston would, and you're going to need other guys to step up, and that just didn't happen. I see right here that LJ Crier led the team in defensive rebounds, right? The guy was really trying to do it all, and that's just not going to happen in a national championship game. You need guys like Elijah Martin on Florida. You need guys like Richard. You need guys like Condon to be like, okay, even if I'm not going to lead in scoring, I know that my point guard's got me. I'm going to pick it up elsewhere, right? I'm going to get him assists. Do whatever I can to give this team an advantage because winning 6 games in a row is hard, right? Random people need to step up. And credit to Florida's defense, right? Many people might not be talking about that, but kept them in that game the entire time and really won it for him at the end. So real tough blow for Houston. Feel bad for Sampson. Like he put everything into this one. LJ Crier, getting him from a national championship team, recruiting well in the area. Like it's tough to do, but Florida was up to the task this time around.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said about Florida's defense. Like, I don't think it gets enough credit because the difference between this Florida team was they were like 100th in defense last year, and now they're a top 10 team in defense. And this wasn't even their identity this year. Their identity was, oh, we're going to score like a boatload on you and you're not going to be able to stop us. Well, Houston is the one team that can stop you. That's what Duke kind of found out as well. Because Cooper Flagg was really the only one to show up in that game, which this can kind of transition into what we think about the other Final Four games, the earlier ones. I want to center on Duke and Auburn a little bit more just because we gave Houston and Florida their flowers. But looking at that Duke-Houston game, like Houston came in with a similar game plan, like blitz the pick and rolls, make the guards uncomfortable for Duke. And guess what? They were never comfortable throughout this whole game, and you saw it near the end of the game. Even with Duke in complete control, Tyrese Proctor never got going. He was 2 for 8, 0 for 4 from 3. And I don't want to rip on the guy too much because I think the improvement that he had this year was tremendous. And this was the first bad game I think I've seen from him because he was a stud throughout the whole year. But this wasn't his best game. He had 2 for 8. He had some rough moments near the end of the game. It was tough there. And then James, he's one of their glue guys. He's very good defensively. He creates stuff. But none of these guards are a true point guard. you don't have a Walter Clayton to slow you down. You don't have like someone like that can be like, okay, like well, I'll make the decision making here and make the right one, you know? And that's where trouble can come in. Foster really struggled for them off the bench. He's been great for them at times. But looking at it this way from Duke, I think this is just a really, really disappointing loss because to me, they were the most talented team in this Final Four. I think so. What were your thoughts on this Duke Houston game?
Yeah, I think you nailed all the thoughts, and we honestly talked about in the championship game, but reverse, right? Houston was down the
Yeah.
whole game, but kept themselves in it with defense. Didn't let Duke turn this 10-point lead into a 20, right? I think they were up 15 at one point, but Houston never went away from it, and that's their entire identity. Happened to them in the championship, but against Duke, that's what they were trying to execute, and they did. One point I think is that they tried to keep Duke's big man Malawak out of the paint. I think he only took 2 shots the whole game, right? Obviously, they were following him, but also he's been a beast in the tournament. It's tough to guard someone that size in March, and they did a good job of taking him out of the game. So, yeah, but the real point about this game is the ending, right? One of the
Yeah.
craziest endings I've seen in March Madness. Obviously, we know how
Yeah.
Houston was in the game, but how they executed in the last 35 seconds is incredible. Probably the coolest ending I've ever seen, especially in a Final Four setting, right?
Mhm.
Totally dead to rights. People were rolling the credits, about to turn off, the TV, get ready for, a good night's sleep. And all of a sudden, force a steal on a full court press, get it into a 1-and-1 situation. Duke drops 1-and-1, which is something that is uncharacteristic of the Blue Devils, right? To not take advantage from the free throw line. Tyrese Proctor, of all people. And then, make the clutch shots when you need to, right? To get back in this game. Made free throws, got an offensive rebound, put back dunk in under 30 seconds, right? Everything that they needed to do, even off of misses, seemed like it was like in coordination to come back in this game, which was incredible. So all credit to Houston there. They made it happen. Their full court defense was amazing, right? Their awareness of when to foul and who to foul and their shot making was all the reason they won. I think the bigger story's got to be on Duke's collapse, though. That was an incredible display of just seemed like 5 guys that were scared to be out there, right? Seemed like people that maybe were used to winning by 10 or more points and were all of a sudden in a close game. We talked about the ACC being down. Some people pointed to their experience in that moment, right? Or also just, Cooper Flag, right? Cooper Flag's clutch gene. It's tough to come on a podcast and talk about that because, when you talk about clutch gene, you're talking about like MJ versus LeBron. You're talking about like clutch player of the year in the NBA, but that's the type of person that Cooper Flag is going to be in his career, right? I'm not, using it as clickbait, but 3 moments when they were in close games this year and he had a last second shot, he either falls over or shoots it short, right? And
Mhm.
that's definitely not a sign not to draft him. I would take him number 1 in a heartbeat, but it's
Yeah.
definitely tough as a Duke fan where you're like, I'm going to keep giving this guy the ball in the clutch moments and he's going to, come up with that. It's something he's got to learn to do as his career goes on. So I feel like it had all 3 like huge moments, right? Turnover, miss free throws, and then short on a game winner that I thought was a pretty good look. So I don't know. All that coming together has just got to be super heartbreaking for Duke, but want to hear your thoughts on that ending.
Yeah, I mean, with the ending here, like I was listening to a lot of NBA podcasts, and I mean, some people had some thoughts about Cooper Flag. To me, I don't like. I really feel like this was more the guards than anything else. It was the collapse of
Yeah,
like the pressure that Houston brings you. And to me, with the Cooper Flag, yes, you can point at the over the back foul. Was it really a foul? I don't know. I don't really care. Like it is what it is. The fact of the matter is it's a 1 point game. Cooper Flag's going after the offensive rebound. They called a foul. Guess what? It sends a 65% free throw shooter to the line. And in the long run, like if you're a Duke fan, I I take that. I take Jawan Roberts coming to the line with a 1-and-1, the game on the line, down one. It's fine. It's a
absolutely.
65%, and there's 19 seconds left. Okay. So he hits both. I have the best player in college basketball to go get me a bucket with 19 seconds left. I take that if I'm a Duke fan. And guess what? He got a great look. It just didn't fall. And it's partly because you're playing against the best defensive team in college basketball. Like, that's just the stage you're on. I think in a normal atmosphere, like, even if this is a Sweet 16 atmosphere and you're playing a good defensive team like Houston, Duke wins that game. It's a Final Four. I think it really got to the guards, and that's why some of the turnovers happened. I don't blame Cooper Flag at all. I don't blame any of that. I think Shire could have done some things, but everybody gets part of the blame. Like even Cooper does because of the foul and because of the missed shot. You all get part of the blame. To me, this is just a historic collapse, and it's more flowers to Houston than anything else, because I think it was just unreal the way that they played, and it just shows you the culture of that team, and
Yeah.
the togetherness of that team. The way Houston should be remembered is this game. They should not be remembered by the championship game, because the championship game, they were unreal the whole game. And this game, like, they struggled a little bit and then came back. I think if you remember this 2025 Houston team, it should be by this game and not the other game. That's my thoughts there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way they were down was pretty gut wrenching for some other teams, and they were in it the entire time, right? They knew they were good enough
Yeah.
to be there, and they showed it, and they executed flawlessly down the stretch. Like it was incredible. Yeah, a few more things about the Duke loss. I definitely do think that, as a fan or a player, you can't blame one moment, which is probably the toughest part, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
want to say so many things went wrong, but the right things went wrong, where you can't point to just one of them to be this is why we collapsed. Do I think that was a foul? No. That was Cooper Flagg's only foul of
Yeah.
the game. Didn't even look like he was close to fouling him, right? Looked like it was a clean box out. He got over the top. That play happens a bunch of times during that game, right? But like you said, 74% shooter Tyrese Proctor is at the line, misses the front end.
Yeah.
64%, Jawan Roberts goes to the line, makes both.
Hmm.
So, like Duke fans say, even if they're going to point to that foul, at the end of the day, it's a 2-point swing because the worst free throw shooter stepped up, right? And that's
Yeah.
just tough to swallow because, like you said, even if it is a foul, he missed the free throw, right? Like all things considered, it's just really tough. Especially because which we'll talk about in the game before, right? That Florida Auburn game, Auburn tried to claw their way all the way back and didn't box out, right? No foul was called on Florida. Florida ends up closing out the game on an offensive rebound. So it's just really hard to see the change in the referee's call. I totally get it. Don't blame Cooper Flagg because he had a chance to make it up, right? And it fell short. It's like, can't even blame him for that foul call. But man, definitely a hard one to swallow for Duke fans. Feel bad for them. Know they'll be back, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. Let's also remember that Cooper Flag hit 2 free throws with 125 left. So, like, if you're asking about his clutch gene, I'm not there yet.
Right.
Yes, he slipped 2 times. Yes, he missed the shot. I think it's just a start, man. Like, uh, he's gonna get those chances all the time, and I think he'll grow into it. I think
Yeah, he's an
it takes some
18-year-old
time.
kid. It's definitely not
Exactly.
on him. He should be in senior year math right now. Instead,
I
he's in
know.
the Final Four. So definitely no blame on him. He scored 27 points, did everything he could. Game high
Yeah.
scorer. One thing I think that is interesting is that some people are looking at Shire and being like, you know, hey man, the standard at Duke in 5 years is championship, and you've had,
Yeah.
the most five stars of any team in the country since you've gotten here. Like, what's going on? I think the funny part is five stars aren't guaranteeing you a championship anymore, right? It's who has the oldest roster, who has the
Hmm.
most transfer portal kids in the roster, on the roster, who has the most experience total. It's not about five stars. I don't think any fan in the country is expecting five stars to win anymore, right? It's not the Zion Williamson era. Cooper Flag is looked at as a inexperienced guy, right? Chad Baker Mazar is almost more valuable than some five stars are, right? Because he knows how to play college basketball. So I don't
Hmm.
think anyone is looking at Duke like, well, you're not winning with talent. They're like, oh, like kind of back to when freshmen started playing. It's like, oh, can you win with talent? Like, can
Yeah.
you win with 18-year-olds? They're going against 25-year-olds, right? Like, can you do this? So paradigm's kind of shifted in college basketball, which I think is exciting. But Shire, one of the few that does a great job of putting five stars out there, is being so young and playing such an aggressive style of basketball. I think he did a great job. They'll be back, but yeah, all credit to Houston. I mean, that was the most incredible comeback I think I've seen in a while. I really thought they were dead, and just everything that needed to happen happened because they forced it. So, really awesome game. Probably my favorite game of the tournament, honestly.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree for sure. Perfect example of the older team we're talking about is Auburn. So let's give them their flowers here. They did make it to this Final Four, and this was a crazy game as well. Auburn leading most of the game, and then you just get a monster performance by Walter Clayton Jr. He had 34 points in this game. So talk to me about what your thoughts were on Auburn. We've talked about them a lot throughout the season, but I want to get your thoughts on their tournament run.
Yeah, I think they had the hardest bracket when it came down to it. I know there might have been some other heavy hitters in the other regions, but like depth of bracket, I think Auburn had a really tough one that they had to get through. And yeah, credit to them. Like a lot of people picked them to lose early, and Michigan State and other seeds to come out of this one, and they fought through every single game. Right? They showed the reason they were the number one overall team. I think a lot of people pointed to them losing four of the last five as like, oh, like watch out for this team, but what it was is they set the record for quad one wins this year, right? And they showed you exactly how they did it. They had a big guy who no one could stop. They gave it to him. They let him rock, the entire game. And as soon as they collapsed on you, they hit a wide open 3-point shooter, right? And if
Yeah.
that shot didn't go in, they, got an offensive rebound, threw it right back out to another shooter. They had the formula for what college basketball needs in order to win it all. They looked like UConn. They don't give them credit as the number one overall. They looked like they were built like UConn. And I thought Janai Broome was awesome. The way he opened that Michigan State game with, felt like 10 straight points right on
Yeah.
Kohler, right? Like that sets the tone. You need your guy to do that. I thought that might have been missing here against Florida, but, you're talking about the national champion, right? No one's going to be able to beat them. So credit to Auburn, awesome run, ran to a buzzsaw. Really thought they had a chance in that Florida game, and just, we're missing maybe a couple streaky shooters to come out, specifically their point guard off the bench, which I thought he was a
Pettiford.
starter,
Yeah.
but
Pettiford. Yeah.
Pettiford's usually good for about 3 bombs, a game. He was 1 for 6. Like that's just really tough. Janai Broome held to 15. Florida did the exact same thing to them that they did to Houston, right? They choked them. They made every basket tough. They ran out in fast break with Martin and kind of slowly, bended Auburn's will, if you will. I also think the free throw shooting of the bigs, Broome and Caldwell definitely, caught up to Auburn. It's, again, just stuff in March that Florida did well that other teams might have struggled with. But credit to Auburn. I thought they had an awesome run. Really, really excited to watch, where these guys go, if any of them hang around. To me, Broome was my player of the tournament, even though they went out this early. Like he just looked dominant. He was an awesome guard, no matter what team he was going against. Gave Michigan fits, had double doubles in the first half of 3 games. Like really, really cool tournament run. I'm not concerned about Bruce Pearl. Definitely get the vibe that this was a little bit like Houston, where like this was the team.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of chips to get these guys on the roster. Their football team was down. Like they put a lot of money into this team. I'm excited to see how they want to rebuild that, but they also might have the formula now for like, hey, this is a program that can get to the Final Four consistently.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. This was definitely the team for them. And looking at it, I thought Broome was awesome throughout the tournament. I didn't think he was great in this game. He just looked a little slow to me. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know what was going on, but to me, he just didn't really seem locked in. Like he wasn't going after rebounds very much. It wasn't the best Broome I've seen. But the one guy that I really think on Auburn that I was really impressed with was Cardwell. They're big. He was a
Yeah.
stud. He was a stud, man. Went after every board, was awesome defensively in the interior. And him getting in foul trouble kind of killed them. He only played 23 minutes in this game. And in those 23 minutes, he had 9 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, they were better with him on the floor. And I thought that was consistent throughout the whole tournament. Like, I thought he was a really, like, great stud. And he looked like he was the leader of the team, too. There's plenty of, I follow a lot of Twitter coaching pages, and there's always an example video of him listening to Bruce Pearl on the sideline and, nodding your head. And that's what you want from a player. And he kind of seems like he exemplifies like everything you'd want from a leader. So I thought Cardwell deserves his flowers. I don't see many people giving him those flowers when just an unbelievable team Auburn has. Another guy I thought kind of struggled was on and off was Miles Kelly. He's a streaky shooter, so I mean it's part of it. And Denver Jones is that way offensively. I think Jones just gives you a little more defensively. So I
Yeah.
like Jones a little bit more. And then Baker Mazzara, I thought he was pretty good in this game. He looked really good. He had a couple big shots to keep him in it. He's just like you never know what he's gonna do. So like he can win you games and he can lose you games, but you need those kind of players. So I liked him overall. I thought he had a good tournament. And then Pettiford, I want to get to Pettiford because I really think he has draft buzz on him and could be a late first round pick. I really like his game. I think this was the worst game that he's played for sure. The Florida, Martin and Richard, I talked about it earlier. They really get under your skin. And I didn't think, like, even if Auburn made the championship game and played Houston, I thought Pettiford would have struggled there too. Because Pettiford's a really young guy. He's a true freshman. And he's just got like a quick like motor to him. Like he can move around. He's very laterally gifted to me, and I was really impressed with like the passes he was making. He turned the ball over a decent amount in this game because Florida gets in the passing lanes pretty quickly, but like the passes he was seeing were high level, very high level. So to me, like if you're looking late first round, I think the question is going to be for a lot of teams is should we pick Walter Clayton or should we pick Pettiford? And I think that would be a big question there because I really like Pettiford's game. I actually think that's a really good question, and I don't know who I'd pick. Um, but it just could be the shot making. Like if you're looking at college basketball sense, you take Walter Clayton, right? But if you're looking at a draft perspective, like Pettiford, like if he finds the tools, like he could be an unbelievable passer with the shooting ability that we've seen that's on and off. So like that's what makes it difficult looking at it from a draft prospect wise and looking at it from college basketball wise. But with Auburn, unbelievable season. I think they'll be back like good, but again, like I think this is kind of where they peaked, right?
Yeah, I do. I think the SEC is going to shuffle every year. Like I don't even know if any of these teams will be able to recruit the way they did last year, just because they made it so far in this year's tournament.
Yeah.
Like I do think that the draft or the recruiting class and the transfer portal class are down compared to last year. Like I do think a lot of the good talent is returning, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not like they missed on a ton of people, but they were playing while other teams were rebuilding, right? Like it's going to be tough to do something like this again. I just think a lot of them now have that experience of getting 3 weekends deep where even if Auburn's a 6 seed next year, like look for them, right? If they're a 3 seed, So impressed by that. I totally agree with what you said about Cardwell. Didn't even look like he was a basketball player out there at some points. He just did whatever coach wanted him to do, right? Held Condon to 1 point and just got rebounds, right? That's like all he needed to do, and that's what he did. So it's like, if Auburn can build like that and not have, not to put down Alabama, who's just as good at doing it the other way, but 5 guys who want to score every time and have like, instead some pieces around it, bench players that step up. Like, I think that's a pretty good recipe for doing well in March. So they'll be back. This game, honestly, for me, this is the game we remember Walter Clayton by because, oh my God, did he just win this game on his own back, right?
On his own, yeah.
No matter what they threw at him, right? Florida could guard, Auburn's guards. Auburn had no shot against this guy. It didn't matter if he was going left off a screen or right off a screen. He was throwing it up like he was Steph Curry, right, at Davidson back when he was in March Madness. Like this was the most impressive display of shooting I've ever seen. And the reason I think he will get drafted, I think that this started as an Iona guard who really was college basketball was his ceiling to a national championship winner who can, shoot the lights out when you need to, put him on your bench in the NBA and he'll provide you 20 great minutes. Like that's a pretty great rise for one player to do in a tournament. And people were saying his name because the SEC championship, like people forget that they haven't lost in a month, right? Like they are just on a tear.
It's crazy.
And it's because this guy forgot how to miss. So this is the game, he single-handedly took down Auburn in my mind. I know it was because of Martin and Richard. It always is, right? But just compared to what he did in the national championship game, like this was Clayton's game, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, he reminds me a lot of Carson Edwards. A lot.
Yep.
Just the
which is high
making.
praise because he's one of the best scorers in NCAA tournament history, right? Like so.
Exactly.
That's what he looked like out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was really sensational to watch. All credit to Florida. You got to give the flowers. Like, this was a great season, and this is a great Final Four bunch to win it from, like those one seats.
I think the best part about how Florida won is that looking back, that they were the best team, right? Sometimes you look back and you're like, oh, maybe they played a worse seed in the final, right? Or maybe they had an easier path, right? Or got lucky. Florida didn't get lucky in any of their games, right? I think the 5th best team in this tournament was Texas Tech. And they should have lost. Florida should have lost that game, right? But they do exactly what Houston does to Duke, right? And they grind at him at the end. Walter Clayton goes nuclear, and all of a sudden, Texas Tech, who was shaking hands, right, getting ready to cut down the nets, is going home. I think that was probably the craziest game. Maybe not the best after Houston Duke, but that was the craziest game because I really thought they had that one and couldn't make free throws. And looking back, it's like, oh, of course they didn't win. It was Florida, right?
Yeah.
Florida made themselves known as the best team every week, and I thought that was very impressive by the Gators.
For sure. All right, well, we're going to take a little break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking about a lot of coaching moves. So we're going to talk about the coaching moves. We'll be back in a sec.
Welcome, everybody, to the JOMO Show, your home for Oakland sports and beyond from WXOU. My name is Giovanni Mosheri, and I am the host of the one and only show that covers the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies each and every week. Subscribe to the JOMO Show for weekly interviews with athletes and coaches, for a recap of the week's action at OU, and whatever else is going on in the sports world. You can tune in on 88.3 FM, WXOU, or wherever you get your podcasts each week. Go Golden Grizzlies on the JOMO Show.
All right. Welcome back in the show. And let's get right to it. We're going to talk about coaching moves. And we'll do it like the draft we did with the way too early power rankings we did last year. We're going to talk about coaching moves because there was a lot of them. A lot of them. So we want to get right into it. So, Asher, I'll start with you here. What was the main coaching move that surprised you? And one of them could be one that we had breaking news on while we were recording. So,
Yeah, that one was, as you know, one of my favorites. I'm
yeah.
gonna shy away from that one because that one's gotten the worst press since we've stopped that podcast. I don't know if we cursed it, but holy cow, are
Yeah.
people upset with that guy?
Yeah.
And that obviously being Indiana hiring DeVries, which we can get into if you want. But no, my favorite move is actually going to be VCU hiring Phil Martelli Jr. I thought that was a really really impressive job by VCU, whose coach obviously got poached, as many of them did after the tournament, and turned right around and hired Bryant's head coach, got them to the finals, or not, sorry, to the finals, to the NCAA tournament this year. VCU is a very interesting team, right? They were a one bid conference in the A10. Last year we saw four, right? This is a very impressive unit that can be, kind of tough to win in. And VCU was so good that they lost a lot of their players and their coach for the second time in 3 years, right? That's not easy to do in college basketball. And what do? They hire a familiar face, right? Martelli was an assistant there when they were on their last tournament run. He got experience at Bryant. He won at Bryant, right? Implemented his system. He's coming to VCU. He's bringing his dad with him as an assistant coach. I think that is
That's
not
awesome.
only a feel-good story, right? He had that awesome quote after the loss to Michigan State about how his family chose basketball, right? How they chose to follow him, but also a story of success, right? Can you go win on your own, right? Can you win like your dad won at St. Joseph's? Can you do it in the same conference, right? Now they're bringing in another A10 team, right, to the Martelli name. So I'm very excited to see which players follow him. I'm excited to see what they do. I think the A10 is going to have a bounce back year, right? Watch out for Dayton, Duquesne, other tournament teams. But I'm very excited for VCU and what they're going to build with Martelli.
Yeah, I mean, tournament team this year, and like bringing in a star coach, like a star coach. He was the coach of, I think, like with all of the mid-major talk, and I'll probably talk about the next mid-major with the Iowa hire as well. But like all of that, I think Phil Martelli Jr. was the star, other than Ben McCollum. Like he was a stud, like throughout the whole tournament. That Bryant team, like they played State hard. If you watch that
They
first
did.
half, you were like, whoa, is State on upset alert? And I thought they were very impressive throughout. It was a good Bryant team, and bringing Bryant to that stage, like it's huge. It's huge for the mid-major programs. Like when Oakland got there last year, and like everybody expected, oh, we'd lose first round, and even if we did, like this was a big time year for Oakland University. And that's what it was for Bryant. That's like their Super Bowl. So I really think he deserves all the flowers, and he's going to bring a lot to VCU. I think they're going to be a legit mid-major next year. All right, so my pick would be Iowa, Ben McCollum. I mean, you saw what he did with Drake. Like it was just flat out incredible. They were the mid-major, like they played Texas Tech hard, and it showed you how good Texas Tech was. That was a really hard-fought game. Texas Tech had to shoot the lights out to win that game, and Bennett Sturts is that guy, man. Like I really think Iowa has a chance to be like top 10 in the country next year.
Wow.
With Sturts. Like I think Sturts is going to be one of the best college athletes like next year, and looking at Wooden Award possibly. I think he's that talented.
Yeah.
And I think when you got like the Iowa like basketball base that they've built with girls basketball and that they've built with Fran McCaffrey for as long as he'd been, he was incredible coach there. I think with that base, like Iowa's going to be a city where you're like, man, like they're going to be back for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that he was the most impressive coach, like you said, like top 2 with mid-majors, but just like everyone knew his name and he was a D2 coach last year, right? Like he clearly made an impact as Drake's coach. I'm a little nervous about how quick he's moving, right? Like that's like going from the big D2 to the Big Ten in 2 years. Like I know DeVries was hopping around too, but at least he like had a couple of years underneath him. So interested to see like what players still have eligibility to come with them, right? Who he's able to recruit. It sounds like he knows what to do. The thing that gives me a lot of confidence is that he's able to change how he coaches and still be successful, right?
Yeah.
Like his style at Drake had to be different because Drake runs, what was it, the slowest offense in the country or something like that. next to St. Mary's. Iowa's known for scoring 90 plus a game with Fran, right? And he's like, yeah, we're going to want to shoot the ball. That's how we're going to want to win in this conference. Like, he's already able to, change kind of how he is approaching, I don't want to say better players, but like different players, you know what I mean? And that's super exciting for Iowa. So I agree. One of the best minds, best coaches. We'll see how he recruits. He could do it in D2 level. Let's see about, high major D1. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. All right, who is your second guy that you like?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a podcast with me if I didn't talk about my guy, now the head coach of the NC State Wolfpack, Will Wade. I think we mentioned it last time because he had already accepted the job, right, before he even started the tournament, which, very interesting move, right, to tell your players that you're on the way out. But I think it ended up working out, right? McNeese State looked really good in that first round. They came to play. Now a lot of them are going to NC State, right? He's a guy that knows how to work the transfer portal, knows how to recruit both illegally and legally now, as we know. And he's going to a state or a university at NC State that is requiring excellence, like flat out. They had a Final Four coach and they fired him for not making the tournament, right? Give him 2 years, right? I get that. After the first year, they fired him, right? No, we need the best. They went and got Will Wade.
Crazy.
He put in time at McNeese, right? He kind of rose back from coach's purgatory, if you will, stayed an extra year to help them get that tournament win. Now he's going to NC State. I'm super excited about that move. That's probably my favorite of all the coaches to watch for next year because the ACC is not down, but maybe available, right? I think NC State's going to be really good.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it'll be interesting. Will Wade definitely did a fantastic job with McNeese, back-to-back tournament appearances, and then the win this year. But like bringing those guys with him will be huge. And like you said, he's great with the transfer portal. He's great with bringing in guys that way. He was known as the gangster. That's what people called him in the past. So I mean, I'm not worried there at all. I wanted to touch on NC State. Like, I still can't believe they fired Kevin Keatts. Like, I'm still shocked about it. And the crazy thing is now it's rubbing off on NBA teams, and you got NBA teams firing their coaches at the end of the year. Mike Malone's gone today. And I'm like, what do you expect from the coaching job? Like, Malone was there 10 years, winning like constantly. And I partly get it because the GM's gone and NBA has all the politics, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, Keats was there and they were winning, right? It just shows you like how much like you can go from here. But if you're not there again, like you're right back on the hot seat. Like you have to have like standing in a program. And to me, it's still crazy that it just happened like that. And they're like, I mean, I love the hire of Will Wade. I'm just shocked still with the Kevin Keatts.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. I think, NBA and NCAA are a lot more alike now than they've ever have been. Maybe not in style of play, but how they're paying people, and NBA programs don't want to get stuck paying a coach $10 million a year because he won a couple playoff games, right? They want to get rid of him early. Same with here. You don't want to pay mediocrity, right? These are people that next to the football coach are the highest paid employee in their state, right? They're making more money than every other state worker, in North Carolina, for example, right? You're not going to be able to pay him $5 million, $3 million a year without success, right? You're already trying to put that money into new players. It's kind of like getting a rookie quarterback, right? Let's see what we can do with some more money and a new face. That's what they're doing here with Will Wade. I don't know. I think the coaches are finally starting to feel the heat maybe of a player, when they're not getting paid as much as they should yet and have to succeed in year one and how they can do it. And that might be good for the sport. I think there'll be a little bit of rebalancing. I think NC State moved a little quick, but excited for Will Wade.
Yeah. No, I mean, and talking about that, it kind of leads into my next guy, which is Kevin Willard, who moved from Maryland to Villanova, and part of it is the NIL backing, right? He didn't feel like he had enough at Maryland and decided to go to Villanova, and it's partly where we're thinking of like the kind of a salary cap type system with the NIL, and in that system, the Big East would be the teams that benefit the most, right? A Big Ten would be capped, SEC would be capped because most of their money, they're going to the football programs. And that's part of the reason probably another guy we'll talk about, Buzz Williams, probably went off, right, to Maryland and the Big Ten. So I think it's really interesting there. But focusing on Willard here, I didn't like how he left. I really didn't. It was a lot of media and, to be honest, like a lot of brutal honesty to the media that I just didn't think needed to be put in there. We talked about Dusty May, I think, in a past episode when he was asked about the Indiana job, and I think he answered it perfectly. He answered it perfectly being like, I would love that job, but like, that's not my focus is Michigan University right now. And I feel like that should be your focus when your team is in the Sweet 16 and you're just coming off of a buzzer beater by Derek Queen to get
Yeah.
you there, right? So I didn't love that, but I think what he's bringing to Villanova is going to be like winning. I think they're going to be able to win with that system. They're going to have money to throw at him. He's going to have the resources now. And he brought in a guy like Derek Queen, who's a stud. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. I mean, one of the most electrifying bigs we saw in college basketball last year. So I think if he's able to continue bringing in guys like that, attacking the transfer portal with his new resources, I mean, Villanova is definitely going to be a team to play. And I think Willard's a fantastic coach. Like what he did with Maryland this year was very, very impressive, bringing them back to this stage and where Maryland basketball wants to be. So I'm very impressed with Willard and the job he did. Just didn't love how he went.
Yeah, I agree. I think that entire situation was handled correctly up until Willard had a press conference, right? And, to defend the guy for 2 seconds, like the whole idea that the transfer portal and coaches leaving can happen, the first week of the tournament is ridiculous, right? Coaches are basically locked into not answering questions while getting thrown $7 million contracts left and right. It's, absolutely absurd that they can't just focus on their team, right? Transfer portal should have opened today. You know what I mean? These guys aren't going to class. Let's just call it what it is, right? Yeah. They got to get into the school just for basketball. We can push it off a little bit, right? So I think Willard was frustrated with that, right? The timing. I think he was frustrated with not having an athletic director, which I totally understand, right? It's not like he had someone who can say, oh, he has my back, or someone that he can say, oh, this guy's working on my contract, right? He had nobody. It was just him answering these questions. And that's super tough to do. He didn't feel like he was supported. I think he could handle it better. I think he will in the future. Overall, spin it to Villanova's side. Super happy that they took a swing on this guy, right? Nova doesn't have a basketball team. Doesn't have a football team in Division I. They're all on, basketball. Their donors are all on basketball. They went and got their guy. Big East talent, right? Used to be at Seton Hall. Super familiar with the opponents they're going to be playing against. I really like that hire. I think he's going to do really well at Villanova.
Yeah, no, I do too. I think he's a great coach, and I really think with those resources, it might be scary. Who's your third guy do you got?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of good shakeups in maybe I wouldn't say the mid majors, but the lower Power 5, Power 6 conferences, And one that I thought was super impressive was UNLV hiring Josh Pastner. So UNLV, I believe, is going to be a future Pac-12 team, right? So rising from Midwest to Pac-12, which a lot of those Mountain West teams are doing. Mountain West known for basketball, right? 4, 5, 6, 7 tournament teams every year, super impressive group. It's not easy to win there. People will consider them mid-major, but they're, easily the right outside of the Power 5 in terms of basketball performance. UNLV, right? A staple in the Pac-12, getting Las Vegas as a market, went and hired a guy who's been out of the game for a couple of years, but known as one of the best basketball minds of coaching. When he was at Georgia Tech, his style of play, he was getting NBA looks. He was a guy that was really close with Jay Wright, John Beilein, people in that circle, Calipari, right? They looked to Pastner for how they should coach their own teams. Took a couple of years off after leaving Georgia Tech, right? When he became an analyst, wanted to get back in the game, something we're not seeing happening a lot, right? You don't see a lot of, what NBA coach is coming back or what, maybe disconnected guys coming in here. College basketball has become a hard place to win, right? So for him to take a couple years off, see where the state of college basketball is at, and then want to come back to UNLV fresh, I think is super, relieving for the sport, right? Something that is going to be super fun to watch, right? What has he learned in the past 3 years, being already one of the best coaches, now going to a program that's elevating to the Power 5 level, right? What are they going to be able to bring to the West Coast? So I think it's super exciting. I think he'll bring in a lot of talent. He's already obviously hit the portal hard, but UNLV was pretty good during the year. They're going to keep a lot of talented people that, want to make a tournament run. It's been a while, right? This used to be the best team in the West, right? This used to be a national championship winning team. They have basketball in their blood. They want to put money into this. What is Josh Pastner going to be able to do with it? I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a market you want. That is a market you want. So that's really exciting to bring a coaching name like that back.
It feels like
UNLV.
Pitino to St. John's for me. It feels like, basketball royalty to basketball school. And I think that, we saw it with Pitino, who's obviously leagues above in terms of success, but we saw it with what he did to a desolated St. John's program that used to be at the top of college basketball. I think Pastner can do something similar. UNLV might take him a little longer, but I think he can do something similar over there.
I love it. I love it. My last guy, I'm gonna go down to Miami, Jay Lucas,
Nice.
with Duke. I think it was a great hire. Duke, unbelievable year. Jay Lucas been with Duke for a little while, gotten to learn under Shire. And I know Shire's getting some complaints here with the Duke standard and all of that. But to be honest with you, I think he's doing a fantastic job. I think he did a great job with this team. I think you want to win a national championship with how much talent you have. But the way he utilized the talent throughout the whole season was awesome. Okay. And
Yeah.
a collapse like that, to be honest, like, yes, it's a little on him. It's a little on everybody. To be honest, if I'm looking at it, I blame him more on my guards. Not gonna lie. I mean, there's a lot of turnovers there, and you're Duke. You shouldn't be crumbling to a team like Houston at the end of the game when you took care of the ball pretty well throughout the game. So that's my take there. But Lucas, I think he's gonna bring just an awesome crew to Miami, and having that Miami area, dude. Like, everybody wants to be in Miami. It's just the truth. I know they're a football school. I know all that, but I mean, look at what Larinaga did with this team. Like, they can be a basketball market. They can be a Final Four team, and I think Lucas can bring some wins to it. I'm not sure if I'm not going to say national championship or Final Four or anything like that, but I think if getting this team back to a common tournament team, common 7 seed, common 6 seed, I think that's a win for Miami if you want to bring in more money to the program. And I think that would be what Lucas can do. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I like that take a lot. I think that, Miami knew they were going to, kind of like Virginia, they knew they were going to move on to a head coach pretty early, right? So they were able to put in the time, kind of see who was interested, who had connections, who was doing well, right? And obviously you're going to look at Duke, someone in your own conference who knows how to play, knows how to win, someone who is on a staff that's been built pretty, the right way for the last 5 years. And they're looking to apparently do the same thing in Miami. Their success in sports has gone up in the last couple of years, right? They're another program that will respond when sports are good. So, especially when basketball is playing well. So I'm very excited for him. I think he's going to do great there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm really, really excited there. So let's look at one mid-major. Okay. I wanted to get one mid-major.
One
in here,
mid-major.
So, yeah.
All right. Let's see. Between a couple, but I think the one that, and I hope I don't steal yours, but the one that that stuck out to me was speaking of NBA guys, how about Mike Bibby taking over for Sacramento State?
All right.
Right?
I love it.
Obviously, not a lot known about Sacramento State. They play on the West Coast. They're in a one bid league. You got to win that tournament. So maybe just the start of his coaching career. But I think you look at the success of first year coaches out of the NBA, Penny Hardaway, or even Juwan Howard, his first year at Michigan. Different guys that had experience playing, at both levels, not only college, but then elevating. I think that attracts a certain talent, right? That attracts high school players that want to maybe stop in college for 1 year before going to the pros, or want to develop to be a professional athlete, not just to win in college, right? And that's an exciting form of basketball. And the state of California has the most recruits, as we know, in basketball, right? They're going to fall to those smaller schools. And Sacramento State, has no excuse, right? They are one of, probably, I want to say a billion, but like one of a million college universities in California that have a chance to make the tournament, right? So look at UC San Diego, right? Look at San Francisco, where Todd Golden came from. You never know where it's going to come out of. You never know who's going to get that talent that year. So Mike Bibby definitely has the name, definitely has the swagger that players are going to want to play for. And no reason he can't be successful. I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about that one. I think bringing an NBA name back like that, it's really going to help your NIL identity. It really does, because Bibby has those great connections throughout the NBA, throughout all of that. And when you have connections like that in this NIL era, yeah, I mean, like, look at football, look at Dion. Like it's the same kind of deal there. And for a team like Sacramento State, it can really get them on the map and maybe get them in the tournament one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my guy, I want to talk about my guy. I'm very excited about this guy because I actually got to meet him. And this is Ryan Pannone, who got hired at Arkansas State. And Arkansas State was a team I watched very closely throughout the year because they were one of my mid-major sleepers. Brian Hodgkin was the coach there. He was a longtime Alabama assistant, and they played Alabama this year. They only lost by 2 points and scared the crap out of them at the beginning of the year. And after that game, I was like, whoa, I'm circling them. They're going to be a tournament team. I'm locked in. Right. And then later
Right.
in the year, they go to Memphis and they beat Memphis. And I'm like, man, I am locked in. Like, this is that team. And then they struggled in conference. They played a very difficult conference and they picked it up late. They made the conference championship game and lost in their tournament. But then Hodgkins got the job at South Florida, which left the job open. Okay.
Right.
So then Pannone gets the job. Pannone was at Alabama last year. He came and talked at the BCAM clinic this past summer, and I got to meet him. He is an unbelievable mind. Okay. He was assistant coach with the Pelicans for a while. He was an assistant coach in I don't know where, but it was definitely like in the Africa, kind of area with the foreign leagues as well. He was there for a while as well. And to be honest with you, like, he's just a stud when it comes to NBA minds. Like he has a whole YouTube page like dedicated to teaching you how to understand offenses, how to understand defenses, and I really respect like the way he watches the game, and he had everybody at the clinic hooked when he was there. Unbelievable speaker, really impressive. And I think this Arkansas State job is absolutely perfect. And it seems like they're feeding off of Alabama assistants. It really does. But I mean, like, Alabama, like, Oates has one of the best programs in the country, man. We've seen it time and time again. Final Four last year, and then Elite Eight this year. Like, they're always all over it. And it's from the analytics approach. Like, Pannone told me, like, they have the best analytics program in the world. Like, he's never seen it better. He was with the Pelicans. He was with everywhere else, and he's never seen it better than that. So taking, like, everything that he's gotten, I think, is going to be very important. And he also has a very good social media following, which I think is going to help him in recruiting. It's going to help him in the transfer portal. I'm really excited about this hire because Arkansas State has been they were so close last year. And you're bringing in a guy, to me, that's very similar to Hodgkins, who I think could do a great job at South Florida too. It's another team I'm watching, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent shout out because I remember that Arkansas State game. That was, unbelievable. And all they did was kept showing the coach, like, this guy knows what Alabama's running. This guy was on the staff last year, right? He wanted this game. I think you're going to get that same energy, right, with the hiring another assistant who probably got great recommendations from the coach that's leaving, right, which is a little interesting. You don't want to be the university that's losing players or losing coaches every year. But if you can show that, like, hey, we're a stepping stone program, bring your players, bring your talent, right? We'll pay you, and then you can either go to a next university or you can be our head coach for life, right? Like, it's a lot of trust, I think, from that Alabama tree. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. I think they can have a much better year than they even had last year, right? I think they could make some noise as like a upset team. That's what you really want from someone like Arkansas State. So would love to see that happen, but think he'll be there for, a while and put in some good years and then probably get offers, sooner than later. So.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about that team. I think they're going to be scary. We went through a lot of coaching hires and didn't even get to Richard Pitino and DeVries and Buzz Williams. So are there any thoughts on those three before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think that, as much as we love the rise from maybe mid-major to Power Five more, there were a lot of, trading coaches, Buzz Williams in his third spot in what seems like 5 years, right? DeVries obviously got a lot of heat for doing that. Pitino playing his father in the Big East, that's super exciting. And then you had Miller, right? Ditched
Miller
the school
well.
that let him come back to go to Texas. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think those were like solid, like this is his job for life moves, right? This is like hey, this is your second shot, like this is your second Power Five job. You got to show us, right? Like we're bringing you in to show us how to win. We're not bringing you in because you're already have it figured out. So I think there's gonna be a lot of coaches that kind of like players are starting to move a little quicker because you just don't have time, right? You don't have time to sit around and wait for a coach to figure it out. Players are leaving, right? They're not even going to stay with that same coach for 2 years, So we'll see. I think there's a lot of pressure on them. Excited about the Patinos, though. It's probably my favorite of all of them.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Pitino. I really think that DeVries is like a 1 to 2 year type deal with Tucker. Like, I think Tucker can really make them really good next year, but I don't know like how sustainable that can be. And then Buzz, I'm excited for that. Like, I think it's a good fit. Texas A&M has been very, very tough. We both picked him to go pretty far. I think you had him Final Four, I had him Elite Eight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so, or at
yeah.
least the Elite Eight. Yeah.
Something like that. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, he's built a program there and he's built an identity, which I'm very positive about that. That one kind of shocked me and I was very impressed with that one.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
Maryland responded well to what Willard did because in
Yeah.
my mind, Maryland's a basketball school. And I know
Hmm.
the money might show football and the recent success might show football because their football team is good, right? They have a head
Yeah.
coach who's established at Maryland and with bowl games every year, right? Like, look at what Indiana did in football. Maryland's like, we want to do that, right? We want to make the playoffs. It was a team that might be under the radar. So, the money might say otherwise, but Maryland's a basketball school, right? If you don't count the fact that they're not in the Big Ten, right? They're the most recent Big Ten national champion in
Yeah.
2002. Like, they used to be Duke's main rival back in the day. Like, they are a basketball school. And so they looked at Willard and they were like, screw you, man, telling us that we're not,
Yeah.
providing for you. Now, if we're going to go get a bigger name, we're going to go get someone who's actually won in, Division One, Power Five, right? And someone that might be feeling the same thing about Texas A&M, who definitely is a football school, the biggest NIL of any
Yeah.
football team. He's like, oh, I could do it, go win at Maryland, get a 4 seed at Maryland for a group that's already got 4 seed level talent. And I'm very impressed with that hire too. I do like Buzz a lot. I hope he stays for a while. I hope this isn't he'll then move on to a bigger program like Willard did, but I think he's a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really a crazy coaching environment. Like we're seeing it with the portal, with the coaching. Like it's flat out crazy and really an unbelievable season, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable, but super fun. I think next year will be exciting. Don't trust the AP poll for the first week because they have no idea who's good yet. But just like this year, I think we'll have an awesome November, right? Tough conferences, and then ultimately, another March, which is the best time of the year. So really fun year this year, though.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Super excited. Is there one thing for next year that you're looking forward to the most?
Ooh, I think that of all the storylines that have been created with like this coach has betrayed this university or this player is leaving everything he said he was going to do and he's at his fourth school in 4 years, like there's a lot of different pieces that you can track to, but I think BYU has got to be the number one story on
Yeah,
everyone's mind. You
yeah,
mentioned him earlier. Not only are they keeping NBA talent at the school, they're keeping recruits and players that are there, in the vicinity. They're keeping them at BYU. They're bringing in the highest paid freshman of all time and the
hmm
number one recruit, someone who clearly could have gone right to the NBA or gone to a semi-pro league and made some amazing money, decides to go to BYU of all places. Now, what might consider a basketball school known for being, Heisman level football is now being like, oh yeah, we made a deep run in March. Like, let's get the best player to return. Let's get our top foreign guy to consider coming back to BYU. I think BYU is definitely going to be the story of next year. They did well in the Big 12, can do better, will do better. I think it's going to be very exciting.
yeah. I think that's a story for sure. I think that's a story. Well, Asher, big thank you for coming on the show, man. Another year done.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate you having me on. We'll do this forever. Next year is going to be the best year yet for my bracket. So thanks,
Yes,
Eddie.
sir. Yes, sir. There's always next year. We can always look forward to it next year. Well, big thank you to Asher Smith for coming on the show. That's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Peace.